Very important video today. I have the brand new Lenovo Legion Go 2. I daily drove the Legion Go 1 for I think like a year or something like that. Great product. I messed around with the Legion Go S, the Legion Go S Steam Edition, etc. But the Legion Go 2 here is something special because they've taken what was great with the Legion Go 1. It's an awesome handheld, kind of a cool hybrid device, and they've made it better. You still have things like the detachable controllers here, but you have a lot of other things that are going to be changed. Even bigger screen this year, 8.8 inches. I love that. I like myself a big screen. Some companies are still opting to go with a 7-inch screen on a larger, physically larger handheld. That's crazy to me. Lenovo said, 8 inches was great, but let's go even larger. Let's go 8.8 inches. And let me tell you, I've been loving it. Lenovo sent this over. It's a review unit. It goes back to them, obviously, unfortunately. But this one here they sent over to me. I've been using it for several days. I didn't even hit the record button for 2 days. I've just been gaming on this thing. And let me tell you, if you ignore everything else about this video, you do get that beautiful 8.8-inch screen. It's also an OLED this year. It's 144 hertz refresh and 100% DCI-P3. It's a killer screen, and that extra large screen real estate here is fantastic because when you're playing Windows games, you often have smaller interface because they're not designed for tiny little handhelds. They're designed for bigger screens. And that 8.8-inch screen can go really far for things like small text, making it more enjoyable. But more importantly, or equally importantly, is it's more immersive and more beautiful. Fantastic little handheld here. So let's jump into this review. It's gonna be a very extensive review, probably boring in some cases because it's gonna be really long. But I'm going to be very well chaptered, so go down to the chapters down below and go to the sections that you want. I will also put some links in the video description down below. Let's jump into this review and see if the Legion Go 2 is worth it for you. Okay, I wanted to do this little intermission part here where I talk about the handheld, and the pre-order went live on Lenovo today, and they've already, I guess it's sold out so fast, they've actually got rid of the Z2E version. It's gone. Luckily, some of my people on my Discord pre-ordered. They got it in time. So yeah, just be aware. These things they sold fast, super fast. But anyways, I still can go through it. So this is the base model, which has the Ryzen Z2 processor. Then there's the Ryzen Z2E processor. Today we're going to be testing the Z2E, which is considerably better. We do have here 16 gigabytes of RAM on the Z1 or Z2 non-extreme. The Z2 Extreme has 32 gigabytes today, and it runs faster. So today we're going to be testing 32 gigabytes at 8,000 mega transfers per second. Big upgrade. 1 terabyte on the base model, 2 terabytes on the better model. So I mean, so far so good. Everything is better so far. Screen is the same on both of them though. You do have a 1200p screen. It is 144 hertz, 500 nits. It is an OLED. And it's 100% DCI-P3 color space. So you're going to get a gorgeous screen on this thing over here. Bigger battery this year as well, 74 watt hours. That's a huge battery. So I mean, just on the paper, you're getting a huge upgrade over the Legion Go 1 with a better chip, Z2E in the case that I would be testing. 32 gigabytes of RAM is huge. It runs faster, 8,000 mega transfers, much bigger battery, and a way better screen. So to get inside is honestly quite easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 small screws. Then you can basically just use a pry tool to get under here. Once that's done, I mean, honestly, you can just pull up on that like that, and it just comes off just like the Legion Go 1. Plastic, thick plastic with a lot of honeycombing to give a lot of structure, especially around where the hinge for the thingy is, the kickstand. So that's good. And here is a look inside. Looks fantastic. So the battery is actually split in two. We have more room in here, generally speaking, because it's a bigger handheld, but we have the battery split in two here, whereas the previous one, it was down here. SSD cooling going up there. Cooling is dead center there. Battery is right here, so when you want to take this thing apart, of course, you can just pull that up, which we will do right now real quick. Get this out of here. There you go. And the SSD is right there. So the fan itself has like a metal piece on it, and they're attached there. So you get like a heatsink essentially attached right on top of the NVMe. I guess that's good. But I mean, you do have to take out a couple extra screws. Okay, can I take it out now? Yeah, so just see how that's over top there. Just pull that up like that, and you can just kind of squeeze that out from underneath. Fan comes out. There's your fan. You get thermal pads, boom, boom, on the RAM chips. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Then you do get the NVMe here. In this case, we are looking at a single-sided SK Hynix. This is a fantastic drive, by the way. Top of the pile in terms of SSD. Okay, so we have that out there. Let's test for dual-sided NVMe. Now, of course, you can put in a single-sided, which will allow you to get up to 4 terabytes, but I want to see if it takes an 8 terabyte. There is the soldered SSD, soldered Wi-Fi there, so that's going to be a barrier, but I don't foresee this actually touching that. Lenovo might have learned. Absolutely tons of room there. Tons and tons and tons of room. Not even close to touching. So confirmed, you can put an 8 terabyte NVMe inside of the Legion Go 2. Okay, Lenovo, you had better not mess this up. I'd also better not mess this up because it's a review sample. But what I want to see underneath here is a little PTM 7950 or whatever variant of PTM they use. Usually it's 7950. There we go. And that's the good stuff, PTM 7950. I can tell because it's dry. It feels very, very dry. That's how it's supposed to be. PTM is a phase change material. Unlike a paste, it will essentially, you put it on, it's a pad. You put it on, you heat cycle it, it'll melt, fill in all of the little gaps. Once it fills in all the little gaps, then it will solidify and become a dry type material like that. So that's fantastic. Now I do have to reapply it. Once you take it off, you have to reapply it. So I do have some, but I've already recorded the like benchmarks, Cinebench, all that kind of stuff, some game tests with the stock. So I'm not worried about that. I already have that data, but I need to restore it back to its stock. So the insides are great. We'll get that fixed back up there. So we have PTM for the cooling, decent enough heatsink there, decent enough fan there, pads for the RAM, looking good, VRMs, all that kind of stuff. We have soldered Wi-Fi, who cares, it's a handheld, and we do support a dual-sided NVMe, allowing for 8 terabytes of NVMe storage. That is fantastic. You can add like a 2 terabyte SD card, and you can end up taking this thing to 10 terabytes. That's crazy. And you have access to dual USB 4. So it's a really, really nice looking device inside. They did a very good job. It's interesting that they have the little warranty thing, not on the spot where I took out the actual heatsink. Look at that dramatic lighting effect there. Changed my lamps around in my new office here. I'm a big handheld guy, so just a little bit of background. If you're just new to the channel here, I buy all kinds of handhelds. I don't, other than the couple from Lenovo that I was sent to review and send back, I've bought all of them, so there you go. And I love handhelds. So the Legion Go 2 is a rework of the Legion Go 1. It's not just a spec bump. It is partially a spec bump. Obviously, you get a better screen, better CPU, blah. It's not just that. It's a full rework of this system. Now, there's the Legion Go S, for example, which, they're taking the Legion Go, and you can actually get it with the Z1 Extreme, for example, with Steam or Windows, and they tweak it. It is a boost in some ways of the Legion Go 1, but actually in some ways it's actually not. It's actually a downgrade. For example, you don't get the detachable controllers on those. These, for example, you do get the detachable controllers. So this is a spiritual successor and a true successor, I guess I'd say, to the Legion Go 1. Legion Go 1. What does that mean? So we have a very large screen here on a tablet type device. Tablet in that, you can physically remove the controllers here, just like my Legion Go 1 that I had, and also the other devices I'm going to show, all of them that I own actually do this type of feature here. So that's a tablet now, right? You can use these like that. You can see they still work. You can use peripherals. You can set it on your lap and just use it as a tablet. You don't necessarily have to use it like that with the built-in kickstand. So let's jump in here. We're going to talk about first size, ports, design, hand ergonomics, buttons, that kind of stuff. The actual in-hand feel of it. It is a tablet type device. You can see there, like the Legion Go 1 before it and some other devices I'm going to show you today, it is a tablet type device. Like this, I guess the Switch was the first to really do this. Is that true? Could be. The detachable controllers that come off, they function as individual controllers as a result. In the Legion Go 2, of course, just like the Legion Go 1, the 1 does function as a FPS shooter thing. This is improved as well, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But it has that. So it's the standard tablet type thing. Touch that. So we'll put these back on for most of the time. Of course, you can use them individually. First thing here we're going to go over is the ports. So we have SD card on the bottom here, micro SD card on the bottom here for extra storage. You have your headphone jack on the bottom. Your first USB 4 is on the bottom there. Your second USB 4 is on the top there. I would always prefer them to be side by side up here, like, you know, Legion Go S or something like that. But this is a tablet type device. It's different. The layout is different. And the speakers, for example, are up here rather than being down here. It's just tweaked a little bit over like a standard non-tablet type handheld. It's fine down here. Typically I have a charging port that has a 90-degree on it, and that goes down there. And then if I hook up external storage or something, it would be in there. Or you could just install them on the device. This came at 2 terabytes, so it has tons. Volume up there. Speakers fire out here, out the top, like the Legion Go 1 before it, rather than some that have handheld, the hand grip type speakers here. You know, Legion Go S, ROG Ally, Steam Deck, that kind of stuff, where the speakers fire out here, right? These detach, so you could potentially have them away from you. So you can't really have the speakers in here. You could, but it would be weird. So they do have to put them up here. That means that they're not quite as directional firing into your ears. That's fine. We'll get into the speakers later. Button placement's different as well. So we actually get these Windows style buttons down here, which is nice for easy access because everything's touch a lot of the time, right? Like you're not have a keyboard hooked up. So a lot of the time you're going to be working in a touch type environment. So having these added on here is quite nice for things like switching through there. Of course, you do have your controls up here. Start, I'm going to call it, and select. I don't know what they're actually called, options and whatever. Start and select in games. Then you have your Legion type controls over here. So you have your Legion space bump out over here, press that, and you can come in here and do quick performance tuning right there. Go through the different modes, that kind of stuff, different settings, quick settings, all that kind of crap in here. Very good. Okay, so let's start with the hand feel. First of all, it's a big device. It's a very big device. I'm going to bring in my Switch 1 OLED, which is an enhanced one with an actual attachment. These things are so unergonomic, like it's just a flat little pancake. So for my hand size, I needed to have a grip on it. And you can see here, there's a big size difference here, right? Huge size difference there. This is the OLED Switch 1, which is fine. I mean, screen upgrade over of the Switch original, but it's fine. But it's definitely on the smaller side, obviously. Not there. I do have a Switch 2. Switch 2 is obviously the most popular handheld right now, but it's a console. It's different. It's also a pancake, so you need to have a grip on it. I need to buy one actually for that there. It's very similar in terms of width, right? The Legion Go 2 and the Switch 2 are actually not too different in width. Right, flip that upside down. Right, not a huge difference in width, just a little bit. So if you've played with the Switch 2, you can see it's a big handheld, but it doesn't feel that unwieldy because you're only gaining a little bit of size there. 8-inch screen, 8.8-inch screen. But there is some height on it, of course. Different aspect ratio on the screen. This is a 1080p screen. This is a 1200p screen. Obviously thicker, but it's not super thick. Like it's definitely thicker than something like a Switch, which is a tiny little pancake type device. Honestly, it's not that thick. It's just a little tablet type thing. Very good. So in hand feel, when you're holding it, it feels fantastic. They did round out the Legion Go 2. Legion Go 1 had this like pistol grip. It was literally like that, like a tube. You're holding it like a cylinder when you were gaming, and it was super sharp down here. Wasn't the biggest issue for me because of my size. I'm a little over 6 feet, and my hands reflect that size. So for me, when I was using the Legion Go 2, or Legion Go 1, I could almost just wrap over and it wouldn't bother me. However, I can fully see why the Legion Go 1 would bother some people, even my size, but especially people with smaller hands, because it was a sharp edge and annoying. They rounded that out, so it feels much more ergonomic on the hand. Right there feels nice, honestly, depending on your hand size. If you're coming down here, or your hands are smaller and you're up here, or you have larger hands than me, even potentially you're even further down, that feels nice and smooth. The curvature of the back is quite nice. It's not just a pistol grip like a tube cylinder. Like I'm not holding on to a toilet paper roll like on this Legion Go 1. It's an actual like ergonomic. It's designed for the human hand, not for the bathroom. So you do get a nice rounded edge there. And it's a little like thinner, for example, grooves for the fingers. So in the hand, it feels wonderful. Lenovo took what they learned from the Legion Go S and put it in here, making it a good hand feel. I like the Legion Go S because of the hand feel. It was fantastic. It was a really nice feeling handheld. This is probably the best feeling handheld on the market right now. I've tested all of the major OEMs that are out, at least. And of course, also like I've imported many different Chinese handhelds from China specifically, like the 1X player type stuff, you know, all these different handhelds, the OXO, that kind of stuff. And this is the best hand feel. It's like a Steam Deck. Steam Deck feels wonderful in the hand. Unfortunately, I don't have a Steam Deck anymore. It was a wonderful feeling device in the hand. Small screen in that, but wonderful feeling device in the hand. This feels similar to a Steam Deck, very similar to a Steam Deck. It feels like you're holding a Steam Deck. Obviously, there's more height on it, so you gain more height there, but the width is not like, it doesn't dwarf a Steam Deck at all in terms of the width. So it doesn't feel unwieldy. Some people may think so. Because it has an 8.8-inch screen, people would say, oh, it's probably massive behemoth, but honestly, not really. It feels like a Steam Deck, which is a good thing. That's a huge compliment. So you feel that you're holding it like it's a robust device, definitely a robust device, not like a little Game Boy SP or something, but it feels nice in the hand overall. So it's an enjoyable handheld, generally speaking, to hold. Very, very nice soft touch. This is like a softer touch plastic. It's not that cheaper plastic. So, I mean, we have different types of plastic here. Like this is all soft here. This has like ribbing kind of stuff, almost like an Xbox controller to give it a little bit of feeling to it. That's a good thing. I like that. And then this is a very soft, almost satiny plastic material versus like, you know, this is just a cheap like kid's toy type plastic here. Doesn't feel nice. The Switch 2 has a softer plastic than the Switch 1, like a satiny plastic. And this is the same type of idea. It's actually even softer than the Switch 2. It feels lovely on the hands. So overall, it feels like a great handheld. If you're worried about hand ergonomics, I did some spoilers on Reddit just for some pictures and that. People are asking all these questions. A lot of the people were asking, you know, how's the hand feel? I couldn't really answer much because it's not, I couldn't put information out until the review is ready to go live. But people did ask that, and I saw the concerns, which is good because I put that out ahead of my review so that I could see what people are asking. And the hand feel feels lovely, rest assured. Now, buttons and button placement. You do have these two new Windows buttons down here, right? So you can go through and switch through Windows. That's great. That's like a Alt-Tab type thing. It's really nice to have that because most of the time you're not accessing a keyboard when you're on this. Maybe you do, but if you're using it in handheld mode, you don't. So it is nice to just have that and be able to pop that up there without having to come in and swipe away or something like that. The touchpad here is lovely. You get a nice little lovely touchpad, similar to the Legion Go 1. That's great. Slightly smaller, but enough, right? Enough. The Legion Go S had that little nubbin thing. I didn't like that at all. It was there because it was there, but this is way better. And touch screens are not ideal. It's still nice. I still will go through the touchscreen quite a bit, but I don't like fingerprints. I don't like fingerprints on my screen, so it's nice to have this. Gives you more precision, and it's also allows you to not touch your screen. That's nice. Very good. Then we do have the buttons up here. We have start and select. I don't know what they call them in Windows. I can never remember. Options and copy, or some screenshot, or whatever they call them. Start and select. That's great. And then up here we do have the Legion button, which brings up the full Legion space software. Right, very good. Close that out. Probably the more important one, just a quick call out there. So if you're in game, you can quickly do controls, change your TDP, that kind of stuff, you know, rip through your performance modes, that kind of stuff. That's just the quick one there. Joysticks feel nice and tight. They feel nice and tight. Some handhelds, like for example, the Switch 1, the original Switch 1, maybe mine was worn out, was a little floppy. The ROG Ally has a ROG Ally 1 and the ROG Ally X, not the new one, but the ones that came out last year or whatever, were like this floppy, loose controller. I didn't like that at all. This feels nice. You know, these are all pretty good here, but this feels tighter, more in line with the MSI Claw or the Steam Deck. And the Steam Deck and the MSI Claw have really nice joysticks here. And this feels very nice. Nice and tight, not like overly tight, but it doesn't feel floppy, like you feel confident with it. Very nice. Buttons here are the same, I think, as the Go S. I'm pretty sure they're exactly the same as the Go S. They feel nice, right? Good placement up here, easy to get to, right? You're not like claw gripping or anything up too high. It's nice placement. They feel fine, honestly. Shoulder buttons, these are nice enough. Clicky. Nothing special, but they're clicky. You can click anywhere on them and they feel good. These shoulder buttons, they don't have the pull trigger where you can make them into analog versus like a hair trigger. So some devices, you can flick and it's a hair trigger, flick it off and it's an analog. You don't have that here. It's a full analog, but it does feel quite nice. Again, resistive and nice. And the groove of where your finger would go is nice. So that feels wonderful. Lots of extra buttons here. So we have the two auxiliary buttons down here, Y1, Y2, and they do feel like they're in a good spot. You're not going to hit them by accident, but when I'm gaming, I actually do just naturally, based on my hand size, I actually do just have my fingers resting on them. Could be just a psychological thing, but they rest on there anyways. So it's easy for me. Like, yeah, they're sitting on there right now. Naturally, that's a natural spot for them. Feels good. This one here, my finger is naturally resting on that as well. No problems. This one here is a little bit weirder for me. Where is it? Yeah, I don't think I would use that one very much here. This one, it's in a weird spot. That one's very easy to hit as well, but that one feels a little weird. I don't know. How would I even hit that? I'd have to use my like ring finger. That's weird. Yeah, I don't like that one. And these are fine, obviously, right? You can just use upper hand, lower hand. These are like really niche buttons here. I don't think a lot of people are using those, to be honest. Like some people might be using these couple here probably a fair bit, but I don't see that being used too much. Of course, you do have the scroll wheel, same as well. These are for detaching later. That's good. You do have a sensor down here and a FPS slider. So this is when you take it off and you put it into FPS mode. You can do that there. Feels pretty nice. So the hand feels lovely, fantastic. I guess we can talk about this now because it's kind of the hand feel and buttons section. This is a little different than last year because it actually locks in, right? So it actually locks in, doesn't come off. Whereas last year it just flopped around in there and there's a little release switch. Right? Lovely. It feels very nice. So that's a good improvement there. And of course, then you have to turn it on. So you can go into your FPS mode or whatever. And then as you can see here, it works like a mouse, right? So you can use it like a mouse in here if you want. Pew, 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 pew. I guess like, yeah, I don't know. I'd probably use it like that. That feels nice enough. Scroll wheel, little flight stick. I guess you could play. I'm not big into it, but some people are, I guess. So it's cool. It's cool they keep it. I'm never going to complain that they keep a feature that doesn't interfere with other features. So if they keep that there, and you know these things come off anyways because people use them like a switch type device, and it doesn't interfere with that, then I'm never going to complain about it. Just because I don't use it, I'm not going to be like, that's dumb, right? It doesn't interfere with me, so it's fine. That's very good. Of course, you do then have the kickstand for ergonomic, so you can set it up on your belly and play in tablet mode, take them off, play with them detached, or set it on your belly and play like that. It's your call. Very nice. Now, again, I'll bring in one other big device. So people have been saying this is 8.8 inches. It's too big. It's not really. Here's my primary device right now. This is a 1X Player X1 Pro. You can see me there. This is a 10.95 inch handheld. This is a big boy, like a real big boy. Why am I bringing this in here? Because this is almost meme level, and it's a huge screen. This is actually too big for most people, I would say, in terms of travel, right? It's not like a travel type thing in this form factor. This is like a Switch though, or like a Switch and a Legion Go, because these come off and then it turns into a tablet. Like it's a tablet with a keyboard. It's a little bit of a different device. And then, you know, when you're in game mode, for me, you put it on like that. So this is truly massive. A lot of people would find it to be a joke. I love it, right? But I also game more not on the go. Like I'm not traveling with my device that much. What I do is I sit on my couch like a potato or in bed like a potato and I game late at night. And this one just rests on my stomach. But it's big. This is a big device. So it can be unwieldy for, it is unwieldy for travel in this format. And it can be unwieldy even if you're sitting up vertically and playing with it. The nice thing is the screen's so big. It's not the biggest deal. But it does have the benefit of, you know, you can go like that. You can turn it into a laptop. So it's kind of like a laptop with a controller. I thought I would bring that in just to show another very large handheld. This one doesn't have the negatives of that, but it does have the positives. It's a huge screen, way better than a 7-inch screen, but the device itself doesn't suffer from feeling like unergonomic and travel worthy, right? Whereas that one can. It absolutely can. So here you get your little traveling case that came with it, at least mine did. Right, pop that in there, zip it up. And it's a nice, clean little package you can take with you. It's not huge. Honestly, it's like Steam Deck carry, daily carry. And how many people carry a Steam Deck? A lot, right? Very popular. Switch 2, same idea, right? Once you get this thing into a carrying case, where's my carrying case? Where did I put it? Here it is. Here's my Switch 2 carrying case. This one's a little bit bigger because it has cartridges, which are not a thing on that, right? You're looking at the same daily carry. Actually, this is thicker. Right, so it's not a it's not a stretch to look at the Go 2 here and be like, some people are saying, well, it's really big, and people are making jokes like your forearms are going to be jacked and sore. Not really, honestly. It doesn't feel heavy or unwieldy, right? We can look at the spec, like it doesn't feel unwieldy at all. So just be aware of that. It feels lovely in terms of hand feel, and also button placement, all that kind of stuff feel really, really nice. I'm going to be testing the audio here, and I'm going to be testing the screen here. So we'll have a look at the screen and go with that. Now it is an OLED screen, and it is a glossy OLED. So you are going to have to deal with reflections. All the handhelds that I've ever used are reflective. It's just the way that they are. So this screen is absolutely killer, right? On paper, it's killer. So it's 100% DCI-P3 color space, which means you're going to have nice vibrant reds. It's OLED, so you're going to have nice rich blacks, high refresh, yada, yada, yada. Now, how does that translate into actual real world usage? Well, you are getting a glossy screen here, glossy touchscreen. Obviously, it has to be a touchscreen because you don't have access to keyboard all the time, so it has to be a touchscreen. It doesn't have to be glossy, but they're going with glossy. All the handheld companies are, I guess. Glossy has the negative of you have to deal with glare. It has the advantage of colors are more vibrant on glossy. So if you take a non-glossy OLED and a glossy OLED, non-glossy IPS, glossy IPS, whatever, when you go with the gloss, it pops more. The screens look more vibrant, more vivid, more saturated. So that's the advantage there. On a laptop, it can be a bit of a pain when you're getting too much reflections because you're dealing with stuff like this here, right? But it's a handheld, so I can just go like that. So reflections are much less of an issue on a handheld than a laptop or a desktop because it's very easy to just, you don't have to adjust yourself. Like I can move, you can see me reflected there. I can move myself, but with a handheld, I can just don't do that. So DCI-P3 color space, what does that mean? What does that mean? Let me tell you right now. Get yourself a Steam Deck original and then get yourself the OLED. Don't worry about the OLED. OLED doesn't mean anything to do with colors. It's irrelevant. Get yourself a Steam Deck. Get yourself a Steam Deck OLED. Get yourself a Legion Go 1 and an ROG Ally 1. The Steam Deck original looked like shit. It was a terrible screen. It was unsaturated because it was a poor color space. So the color space would look bad. If you looked at a red screen like this, red scene like this, the original Steam Deck looked like garbage. It was pink, basically, like a pink-orange washout. The Steam Deck 2 then had 100% DCI-P3, right? So it's big improvement. Get yourself the ROG Ally. Original ROG Ally was a big boost over the original Steam Deck because it went to 100% sRGB. So you would get nice reds, not this red, but nice enough reds. There'd be a little bit of a pinky orange unsaturated, but it was a big improvement over the original Steam Deck. Then you get the Legion Go 1, which moved into 100% DCI-P3. Then you're moving into serious territory. That was an IPS, it wasn't an OLED, but it was a freaking killer screen because it was 100% DCI-P3. So your reds here are a nice, rich, royal red. This is important. This is not a handheld that you use to do Excel spreadsheets. This is a gaming device. It is a consumption device where you're playing games. You want to have 100% DCI-P3 color space because they're going to absolutely pop off the screen. When you're playing games like, let's say, for example, Horizon Forbidden West, beautiful saturated game. Even Cyberpunk, there's lots of those bright, vivid colors. They need to pop off the screen. So you need that 100% DCI-P3 color space so your red doesn't look like trash, right? So they have that here. Then the other advantage here is it is an OLED. So the OLED has nothing to do with the colors, but the OLED does add these very rich blacks. We'll talk about it when we get into a little game testing here. You're going to notice that when you have a deep OLED, regardless of the colors, even if it's a shit color OLED or a good color OLED, you notice that the content in general looks more 3D, more depth to it because the blacks are rich. It pulls you into the image better. Add on top of that, beautiful reds here, and you have what the makings of a killer screen. So here's another scene, for example, beautiful, rich greens as well. 100% DCI-P3 is really reflected in the reds, especially the reds, but also the greens. Very vibrant. Lovely, lovely. So it's not just because it's an OLED. The OLEDs have nothing to do with the color. The OLEDs affect the blacks, right? You get this nice depth in here. For example, this looks like it's 3D. It pops off the screen. If you're watching this on OLED, you would notice those beautiful blacks, but then you also get the rich colors as well. So it's a fantastic screen. 8.8 inches is way better too. We'll show when we get into some games. I'll splice in some game stuff here. And then we'll talk about in the game section as well. But some games just do not look good on smaller screens. The text becomes basically unlegible. When you're getting into an 8-inch screen, or even better here, 8.8-inch screen, it makes the interface much better. We can show a little bit of that, of course, at Windows, right? So we come in here. It's very easy for me with this larger screen to use the touch screen and navigate around. The 8-inch was good, but it wasn't fantastic. 7-inch is terrible. Honestly, I'm sorry, 7-inch is terrible. For a Windows PC, it's terrible. You'll have a hard time navigating like this type of thing. You have to have better vision because the text is physically smaller. I don't care what the resolution is and the pixel density. The font is smaller on a 7-inch. So it can be hard. Here on an 8-inch or 8.8-inch here, which is fantastic, everything is just larger. Looks great, fantastic. So what we'll do here is we'll actually come into Final Fantasy here. I'm not going to do game testing here, but I'm going to show you some text. Okay, now, here is a large, I don't have a lot of games that I can compare because unfortunately I don't have a small handheld. I don't really like them. So here is, you know, our 8.8 inch display here. And here we're playing Final Fantasy Tactics, The Village Chronicles, which is, you know, remake or whatever. This one is actually kind of blown up. Like they actually do blow up the text a fair bit, but there are still small text elements on the screen. Not much that you have to interact with, whereas some, you know, some games, there's a lot of very small text that you have to interact with, and they become very small on a very small screen, right? That can be an actual problem. Now, I do have a Nintendo Switch OLED, which is, you know, our 7-inch category here. You know, some of these things become really small. It's hard to show on camera, but like that is fully legible. I have no problems with that. It's not small. These things can become very, very small. If I can focus, right? Maybe they start to become very small on that screen, right? You're bringing the Switch very close to you. Even if you have perfect vision, it's just physically small text, right? You know, that game's not too bad because it doesn't have too much like text loaded interface. You know, a lot of these games are meant for consoles because they're console games, but there are games, especially when you're getting into PC games, where, you know, the font, like if we're looking at, you know, games like, for example, strategy games, Baldur's Gate, even action games, a lot of the time you can find that the text just becomes too freaking small, becomes too small on camera, it becomes too small in person, so that, you know, it's really, really hard to interact with it physically if there's things you need to touch or use a mouse type device, you know, strategy games, that kind of stuff. But even in action games, it's just hard to see. It's small, it's uninspired and unappealing. Whereas when you're on a large 8.8 inch screen like this here, these text type information here are very good in game. Obviously in a Windows setting, right? Like you can come out here in a Windows setting, you know, these things become really tiny on a 7-inch screen. They start to become really tiny, unfortunately. That's why I'm quite disappointed that Asus is launching the new ROG Ally stuff that they have in a 7-inch screen. The physical form factor of the device is actually larger than the previous years. So they're fairly large handhelds, and then they decided to put a 7-inch screen in. I can't understand that unless they're just recycling it for cost. I don't understand it, because 7-inch is not good for a Windows handheld. It's okay on something like a Switch that's a dedicated console. It's designed, the games are often designed for that, you know, smaller interface. But even if you've used that, you know, there are some games where it's not, and it can be a problem. On a Windows type device, you know, you're typically looking at large screens, you know, 14 inches all the way up to potentially, you know, 32 inches, something like that. Those are very large screens, and text elements can become very, very readable on large screens. When you're getting into small 7-inch screens, it can become a massive issue. I mean, even with the, you know, the Steam Deck, even the freaking Steam Deck original, when they did the OLED refresh, they made it bigger. They went from 7 inches up to 7.3. They got it. They were like, with even 7 inches for Steam was too small. And then Nintendo, of all people, even Nintendo, who's like stuck in their ways and will never progress, even they put an 8-inch screen on their device here. Now, this is an even bigger improvement over the 8-inch of the Legion Go 1, because now we have 8.8 inches. It's still in the territory of not being unwieldy and becoming, you know, a little bit too big for a lot of people like that there. But it's offering, you know, the larger screen experience, which is fantastic for games, especially like RPG style games, where there's a lot of small stuff on the screen that are important features of the games. But even in, you know, action type games, maybe you play, you know, FPS shooters, that kind of stuff, it's not fun and immersive to play on a tiny little screen, right? If you're just popping it in your pocket, it's a little like, you know, little retro handheld or something, sure, whatever, right? But if this is a primary device for you, a big primary gaming device that you're going to be using all the time, you want a large screen like this. It is much more enjoyable. Now, the Lenovo Legion Go 1 had one major flaw. It had, you know, ups and downs and, you know, pluses and minuses and all that kind of stuff, but it had one flaw, and that was the speakers were shit. The location of the speakers can't be really changed much because they're on the tablet here. You can't really have them on the joystick because if you move them away, it would be weird. So that's a negative. I mean, they're not going to be directional right into your ears like that. But, you know, the Legion Go 1 had like tinny bad speakers. I actually made a video that was pretty popular showing people how to improve it somewhat, but no matter what you did, they were not good. They were like the weakest of the whole generation. These are not that. These speakers are massively improved. Let me show you here. So just watch your headphones, because these actually get loud for a change and they sound pretty darn good. So we'll turn this all the way up here and we'll use YouTube. Just watch your headphones here. I'm just going to show you guys how this sounds. massively louder than last year. So that's enough for that. The speakers are a monumentally mega massive improvement over the Legion Go 1. They are significantly louder. They are not tinny at all. They don't have that tinny hollowness of the Legion Go 1. I can say that these are better than really any other handheld I think that I've used right now. The ROG Ally was always one that had good speakers. The Steam Deck had good speakers. These sound better because they have more bass. They have a nice, rich, full bass at the low end. Not like a subwoofer, but they have bass. They actually thump. And they sound full and rich from the low all the way up to the high. So good job, Lenovo. I think if you're going to have an award for the most improved player, it's going to be the Legion Go 1, specifically for speakers. They went from like basically garbage speakers. They worked, but that was as far as I was going to take it, all the way up to really being absolute top of the pile. These are fantastic speakers. Add into that, we'll get to the acoustics of the device, but we'll add into that like a low noise, like negative noise profile of this handheld. And you're really cooking here. You're going to get good audio and you're not going to have a lot of noise coming out of the device. Now, these two devices here in front of you basically use the same chip almost. This is a HX370, AMD HX370 with 890M graphics. This is the chip that it's based on, the Z2 Extreme with 890M graphics. So they have the same graphics, 890M, 890M. They are the same iGPU. They are physically the same iGPU between the two of them. So all things considered, if the drivers are the same for the iGPU, in theory, you would get the same performance, or close to the same performance. Maybe not exactly the same, but close, right? On the GPU itself, because they are the same GPU. Same ability to allocate VRAM, all that kind of stuff here. Memory between the two of them, 8,000, 7,500. This is actually technically slower than that. This has 7,500 mega transfers. This has 8,000 mega transfers. That's faster memory. Faster memory is important for iGPUs, not just CPUs, but iGPUs, because it's used as VRAM. Like the VRAM on the memory is actually used for virtual memory. So the faster it is, the better, right? Now, the biggest difference between these is the CPU. They are based on the same thing. They're the same architecture and all that kind of stuff, but this has physically less cores. 8 cores versus 12. 12 by 24 threads, 8 by 16. Is that a bad thing? No. These aren't being used necessarily for computational tasks. Like we're not running, CPU-based models and that kind of stuff, and we'll do some Cinebench here for testing. That's not the point of these handhelds. They're gaming handhelds. You can do it, but it's not designed for that. So having these extra E cores, the efficiency cores on this device here, yeah, they can help with benchmarks, but they don't help with gaming. They're typically not used and can actually be detrimental to gaming because they're going to be consuming power. Even if it's just sipping it, they're going to be consuming some of your device power going into those E cores, and they're not benefiting you in gaming, right? They're not going to be benefiting you in gaming. Whereas over here, you have 8 cores. You just have the 8 cores. You get rid of those extra E cores. Let's say these are some E cores over here. Get rid of those. Focus on the performance cores over here to give you the performance that you need. You don't need those extra E cores over here, meaning it could potentially be more power efficient. Now, there is going to be some differences beyond that because of the drivers. These Z2 will not use the same drivers, Z2 Extreme will not use the same drivers as the HX370. They're not going to be the same. These use generic Windows-based AMD drivers. These use custom OEM versions of the drivers. Of course, AMD puts them out as well, but they're going through the developer, the handheld developer, so a little different. So it's more likely your drivers will be behind here than over here. But if they are on the same drivers, theoretically, in terms of CPU in gaming, this will have less nonsense going on with the E-cores. Now, that may not manifest the same in something like Cinebench. We'll see it here. So let's come in here. We'll bring up these performance modes here. This is, again, these are so powerful these days that you can actually use them as like legitimate gaming computers. Like they're designed to be gaming handhelds, but you can also use them as computers. So what we'll do is here, we'll come in here, we'll run some Cinebench on both. Again, this is not really relevant too much to what the handheld market would primarily be focusing on, but I am curious to just see what kind of wattages they do allocate here and scores. Theoretically, this one should perform slightly worse in terms of the CPU not having E-cores in that, but there's things like cooling and all kinds of other stuff here. So we'll see what we get here. This is in its full wattage mode, which is 30 watts. This technically is in a higher wattage mode. We can see here the performance here. Wattage is actually higher, 36 over here. CPU core power is lower, 20. We're peaked at 30. This thing is locked at 30 watts. This one here has an extra 5, 6, 7, what is it? 7 watts extra. I guess technically you can go up to 45 for a burst, but 7-ish, 5-ish allocated. So you have, 7-ish watt overhead over here. So you have almost like a 15 to 20% performance wattage benefit on this device here versus this over here. So the score here, let's have a quick look. 14,950, 13,480. So this has more watts allowed to go to the CPU. This has more watts allowed to go to the CPU. 37 versus 30. Now, that being said, 13,000, 14,000 over here, 14,900, so 15,000 is nothing to sneeze at. If you want to plug this into your monitor and use them as a primary desktop device, this is rivaling essentially, the best mobile type laptops you can get, right? You're going to be getting slightly behind what a desktop variant of this or the laptop variant of this can do, in its full cooling sense, but it's still going to do fantastic. You can easily hook this up behind your monitor, use this as a daily driver computer, doing heavy CPU tasks. I'm talking code compile, video editing, all that kind of stuff you can easily do on this. It has the eGPU for the video editing. It has the CPU tasks for video editing, for code compile, that kind of stuff. Yes, it's slightly slower than the full one here that has those extra cores here. But other than, some very niche cases such as video editing and frankly, synthetics, a lot of it's reflected in synthetics, not even real work. These are going to be more or less the same in that sense. So, according to a Discord user who might be known to some of you guys, Mushmaster Ginkgo, he told me, and I'd heard before, that the HX 370 over here, which uses just standard AMD drivers, should have a similar situation here, the Z2 Extreme. I had heard, I don't remember where, it might have been from him, but somebody in the past said that the Z2 Extreme should be supported by AMD itself rather than the OEMs, like the Z1, which means more regular updates, in theory, more regular updates. Now, when I first got the device, I tried to update through here and it didn't let me. It was just saying no. So what I ended up doing is I came in, and it might have just been, this thing's not even launched yet, but I came in here, I went, oops, that's not right. I went in here and I just uninstalled it. Uninstalled device, uninstalled the driver. Then all I did was, honestly, I just downloaded, come back here. I just downloaded Afterburner, or AMD software Adrenaline, sorry. And you can see here, this is 2.5.9.1. Interesting. And that's the same version on my HX 370 over here, 2.5.9.1. Very good. Now, the interesting thing is it did update, and updated all the chipset drivers. Now, I'm not sure if the graphics driver updated from this or it just did it from Windows. I couldn't tell, but I'm assuming it did it from this because it actually installed a different version. And you can see here as well, 2.5.25.10.28.02. So this is actually a newer version. This is dated September 4th, 2025. And this one over here is dated August 8th, 2025. So it's older. The actual physical software is newer over here than here. Now let's check the drivers. They're not the same drivers, which makes sense. It is the same iGPU, but it's not literally the same chip. So come like this. Go like this here. We'll go display. Come in here. So this driver here is 32.0.210 blah 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 blah. Okay, let's come over here. And this is 32.2105. So this is actually a newer driver. This is the driver itself is dated September 4th, 2025, August 25th. So not a huge difference in the date, and they are similar. They're both 32.210 something. This is 2825. So this is a newer driver. They don't use literally the same drivers, I guess, because they're not literally the same. So based on what I've seen so far, I can't say with 100% certainty because it's a bit tough because I can't just download the Z1 Extreme drivers offline and install them. But from what I can tell, it seems to be doing it directly from AMD, I think. Again, I did run Afterburn, or I did run Adrenaline, like the installer here. And while it was doing that, it asked me to install all the chipset drivers and everything like that, which is interesting in itself. That wouldn't have done anything on the Z1. It just would have not worked. If you run the Z1 and you tried to run Adrenaline software, it would just be like, this chip is not supported, right? You'd have to get a custom one. Here it did, updated all the chipset drivers, and during that, it seemed to update the display driver. So I think, so far from what I've seen, AMD is going to be supplying these drivers, and that's a huge win for consumers, because the Z1, the negative was they were always behind, right? Asus, we were always hoping that Asus and Lenovo would update the drivers, and I mean, they're big-ass companies. I'll give them some leeway there. They are big-ass companies, so it is tough to constantly be on top of something like that. Here, we're looking at graphics drivers, video drivers, almost like console level people getting console level experiences, so they want constant updates. And these companies are not used to doing that. It's not something that they're doing all the time. This isn't Sony. This isn't, Microsoft. It's not Nintendo, right? These guys make bazillions of products, and they're trying to manage it all at one time. So anyways, the conclusion here is, from what I can tell, is that AMD is supplying these, which is fantastic. So we're getting the 890M drivers from AMD itself. That's what I wanted to see. I was really worried about that. And interestingly here, it's not going to make a huge difference for the game tests. We're both going to be on both modern driver versions here. That's what I care about here, modern driver versions. There will still be a little bit of a difference potentially between game developers. The game developers might, optimize for a certain, driver or something like that, which means, this one might come out sooner or something like that, and maybe be a little more optimized. Or, maybe they're going to see that so many people are gaming on these handhelds, right? There's like Lenovo, there's Asus here, or there's Lenovo here, Asus, MSI has one, and potentially other brands are going to be using the Z2 and Z2 Extreme. So we might see even more game developers also optimize for these drivers. So that's fantastic. So that's that there. That was a big concern for me. Very important. This is just the review here. I'm going to test one heavy CPU game, Cyberpunk. I'm going to test one heavy GPU game, Hogwarts. Hogwarts is also a title that runs well on AMD in general. Cyberpunk generally runs okay on AMD. It definitely favors Intel and NVIDIA, but these APUs here have ray tracing cores in them. So, you can do some of these type games better, and you can do games with mandatory ray tracing better than you used to be able to do. So we'll test a heavy CPU game and a heavy GPU game on the Legion Go here. I will bring in some footage and data from this as well, so we can see the difference. Just stay tuned, though I'm only doing 2 games in the review because it'll be too long. I will have subsequent game tests, lots of them, at minimum of 2 videos. If not, I might just do a bunch of them. Just keep testing and testing and testing for a few days. Lenovo didn't request this back right away, but someone else will want to review this. But I will tomorrow and the next day just rip reviews. Just game. Okay, game testing time. We'll start with Cyberpunk, which is a super CPU heavy game here. We will, again, as I said, we'll do some wattage testing. Of course, I will show you the noise, and I'm also going to bring in some footage from the HX370, which, is a variant of this chip. Okay, so we do also have the charge rate here. We have the charge level, and we have the capacity in that. Right, we can see that there. So we have all the different information. I'm just going to go through this really quick. Temperature of the CPU, temperature, or GPU, CPU, whatever, same thing. We have the usage. We have memory, VRAM. So we can see what's being used. Obviously the VRAM I've turned up, gave it 8 gigabytes. It's probably more than enough, but whatever. GPU power, which will match what's in Legion space over here. We have the system memory being used on top of VRAM. So that's VRAM system memory. Z2E CPU. So that's the CPU usage. It's not 100%. Okay. Very good. GPU is maxed out, obviously. We have our frame systems type stuff here. And then I don't know why I put max in there, but whatever. Did that by accident. And then we do have remaining capacity on the battery, charge level %, and that's here. So we will, to do a battery test for me, I don't have to run this thing down. Some people do that, but you don't have to do that. What you can do is you can just see what the drain is on the battery. That'll take a minute to update while we're testing here. And it will let us know how fast the battery is going to drain. That's literally the whole system being drained out. And we can just divide that into that. So you get the remaining capacity, you just divide that out. So we're looking at an hour and a half right now under full load. So we can watch that go as we're going, and you can see what kind of battery life we're getting here. Theoretically, we're going to get about an hour and a half or so here, something like that, under full load. So just keep an eye on that. That way I don't have to, do like a battery chart at the end. That can always be, that's great and everything, but I mean, in the end, running the thing down, you can just see what kind of wattages it's burning overall. Very cool. So we're at 50. So you can see here, I can tell the guy's talking. Just so you know, for some reason on APUs, when this dude talks about Dogtown, the frames drop. Watch, 41. As soon as the guy shuts up, the FPS will go up. Kurt Hansen, I don't care, shut up. He's done talking now, okay. So stupid. Okay, so now we have the performance here, 51. It is essentially identical to the Z1, the Z2 Extreme here is essentially identical to my HX 370 within margin of error, 1 FPS up and down. So that's good. It is matching my HX 370 over there. We can show some of that footage as well. That's very good. So at full wattage here, performance is the same. 51. Let's come in here and check the performance mode. So let's check the noise first. Zoom out. So 46.9. It's certainly not silent. However, there's no pitchy, annoying noise to it. The tone of the fans are good. Balanced. The GPU watt. We'll see what happens. It'll figure itself out here. So performance mode actually is interesting. It goes all the way down to 20 in performance mode. We do lose a lot of performance. So we went from 41 FPS, sorry, 51 FPS down to 38. Still very playable. This is good. By the way, the settings here are 1200p, medium, with balanced FSR3. No frame gen. So that's a huge wattage drop there. Huge wattage drop. We did lose performance, but it's still very playable. The battery life is going to be obviously a lot faster here. You can see, we're down 31 being burned. So now we're going to get more than 2 hours out of the system. We're at 93%. So, I mean, if you just figure this thing out, double that, that's 60. So you're going to be getting about 2.5 hours under performance mode. That's very good. Actually, it's very good. Wattage and the performance did come down with the lowering watt. We went down to 20 watts there. The performance obviously did come down, but I mean, we're well over 50, well over 30 here. Kurt Hansen is now talking. It's such a pain in the ass game to... You have to wait for the guy to shut up and then the performance will go back up. Okay, Kurt Hansen is done talking now. So now our performance is up there. So we went from 51-ish down to 38. So it is a big performance drop. However, we're getting like double the battery life, something like that. Not quite, but half the wattage being used. It's also very quiet now. Right, we're getting down to almost silent, and it's just on performance mode. Let's go to balance mode here now. A few more watts off, 5 more watts. Now I have experience with the 890M and it is still performant at 15 watts. I've done a lot of testing. That's kind of the minimum that I've tested it and it's performant. At this point, it's very quiet. You can hear it, but it's approaching my actual noise floor. We're still getting 30, even though we went from 37 watts down to 15. So huge wattage drop here. Now, I mean, look at that. We're going to be getting 3.5 hours of battery life, 3.5 hours battery life, approximately, something like that, when you're on balance mode and you're still getting above 30. Of course, you can turn the settings down, right? You could go with a low setting or more scaling. I would actually just turn it down and get more frames, right? So if you're this is still playable right now. This is the hardest area to run in the game and one of the worst games for handhelds, and we're still getting an easy 30 here. On medium with only balanced scaling. You could turn the scaling down, turn the scaling up, or you could turn the settings down and get better performance. Let's go to quiet. Now I do expect it to drop down. 10 watts will choke the CPU. 8, in fact. It will choke this in Cyberpunk, right? If you're playing an indie type game, an easier to run type game, which I'll show you real quick, you'll get really good performance. So those are the different modes there. We can also use custom here, right? So that's that there. We can come in here, right? Performance was that. I have noticed that 25 performs almost identical to 30 in my testing on my primary handheld. So we're going to come down here. We'll go like that. We'll go 25. Wait for Kurt Hansen to shut the F up. Okay, so you can see here, this is now 25 watts. 25 watts. Okay. Let's reset that. 25 watts, we're looking at about 45, 46. We'll pull this up here. 30. So there's a jump, but it's only a few frames, right? Like 3 or 4 frames. This is as much as my other handheld can do 30. It can't go above 30. 1 or 2 frames. So it's your pick, right? If you're at max here, 35 watts, you're burning a ton of power. But if you're plugged in, you don't care. You can plug it in, you know, rather than being burning watts, you're going to be charged. So you're not going to worry about battery life. You'll be getting, for example, 51. And then you say to yourself, you know, I'm going to bring this down here to 30, right? You're not really losing much performance, maybe a couple frames. You're gaining a little bit more battery life, right? We lost 2 frames. So I'd consider it almost exactly the same. And you can still come all the way down to, for example, 25. And you're still going to be able to game at very high settings like this, right? At this point, we've lost 3 or 4 frames. So about, not like it was at 8%, 7% or 8% performance. And we're burning considerably less watts. Now we're going from 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours here. Okay, now we'll do a little bit of Hogwarts Legacy. I've already done some Hogwarts Legacy. And kind of do a run back and forth on the other one. We'll cut some of that footage in here. Here we are at 1200p medium with quality scaling, FSR. I would actually personally use XCSS. It looks better, but we'll just use FSR. That's fine. Just the settings here as well. Check the wattages on that. So here we can see, we're running cool on that. The GPU is at only 85 or so. Interesting. CPU is a little lower as well. For some reason, I find this game doesn't necessarily always max out the GPU on the settings there. It's fine. So we can see here what we're getting. We're getting what 41, 42. It's respectable for these settings. Come in here. Let's try native. I just want to see what it'll do. All right, so you're getting about 37 or so, 36. Come back in here. We'll do a little run up and down. We'll try some other settings, but just so we can match up with my other handheld. We'll go like this here. That's all good. Okay. So again, this is medium, 1200p. You can turn down the settings. You can turn up the scaling. Lots of different options here. Just do a little run back and forth. Let's come down to 30 so we can match the other handheld in its exact same watts. Okay, no real change in performance because this game is not going to slam the CPU as bad as Cyberpunk. We're not really struggling to feed the CPU and the GPU at the same time, right? And just see that again. So that's 48. Just crank that up. No difference. Actually, it might even be worse, but I'd say margin of error almost no different. Go like that. Go back down all the way to 30. It's basically exactly the same. So there's really no need in a game like this that's more GPU bound. Cyberpunk hits the CPU and the GPU very hard, so those extra watts are very useful. In a game like this, it's not as CPU heavy. So bringing down that didn't affect the performance at all. Let's come down a little further. 25. I mean, the performance is exactly the same. It may be better. Could just be margin of error, but it looks to be about the same. So going all the way down to 25 in a game that's more GPU heavy, we're not losing performance here, right? This is where things start to get really interesting for me. Games like Cyberpunk that are going to slam the CPU and the GPU both very hard, obviously going to be harder But here, I mean, that's not the issue here, right? The wattage of the battery, we're dropping down, but I mean, still, we know what the capacity of this battery is, 72. We're still going to get 2.5 hours. Okay, let's drop down a little bit further here. 20. We still haven't lost performance. Remember how Cyberpunk was starting to lose performance when we went down in watts, but that's because it's such a GPU and CPU heavy game. Games like this that are more GPU bound, CPU's not being slammed as much, we're not losing any performance. Even still, we're not losing performance here. Come down more. We should start to see a little bit of a drop now based on my experience. There we go. Now we're losing. So 20 watts is essentially giving us 100% performance in a game that's more GPU heavy than CPU heavy. That's what you want to see, because it means that you can get more battery life, lower your system. So here, I mean, now we're going to be getting 3 hours, right? Easy 3 hours out of this thing here. You can play with the settings. You could lower refresh if you're on battery, all kinds of stuff to bring that down even further. But just stock system, throw it on 15, you're getting 3 hours. And you're still very, very, very playable. Now, if we go into 10, we should start to see, once again, it'll tank. Right, so now, that's what I meant to do. But you get the picture, right? So really, I mean, if you're in very CPU heavy games, you know, you can be at 30 or even max, no problem there. Sometimes even 25. If you're in more GPU heavy games like Hogwarts here, that's a really GPU heavy game, right? You can actually lower these watts way down and still get excellent performance. Right? 20 or even 25, your pick. 20 or 25 is where it's at. Excellent performance. Okay, now there are games that are not going to be as intensive in terms of resources, but are still in the top 10 games of all time. So Final Fantasy Tactics in general is a top 10 game of all time. And if you don't agree with me, then you can fight me, fist fight me, because you'll lose. Only because I will gain all the power of Final Fantasy. I mean, I was playing this last night on this handheld. Yeah, for a second I was thinking it was that one. And I was just ripping this thing down. Like, look at that. Performance. Right? This is a brand new 2025 game, like 3 days old. Absolutely outstanding, stellar reviews. Look at it, we're still at 60. How low can you go? That's quiet mode right there, right? Quiet mode is 7 watts. We're still at 60 FPS. Right, and system power is at 15. So what do we got here? 15, 30, 60. We get 5 hours? Maybe more? Hard to say. Can we go lower? 7. Oh, it's finally dropping down. 7 watts. 7 watts. So just give it that one more watt. It's not going to make a difference in the battery. One singular more watt. And now we're at 60, right? And now we're ripping Final Fantasy. It might drop below 60 from time to time, but I mean, can you play games on like 7 watts? Yeah, you can. And you can play some of the best games ever made. This is like, you can get indie games, right? I shouldn't have done that, by the way. Lots of indie games you can get out there. Lots and lots and lots of indie games around. You can play indie games that are going to be very light on resources, but still some of the best games ever made, and you're going to rip through them. Or you can play games like this. Like, this is from, one of the biggest game developers around, and it's a beast, obviously. One of the best games ever made, and this is the remake of it. I can't hit him. Damn. Okay. And yeah, I mean, play games like this, right? You're going to have fun with this? You're damn right you're going to have fun with this, because I told you should have fun with this. Ooh, I don't know if I can get to her. Is it going to hit the cat thing? It might. No. Yeah. I have to be very careful with this game. Very, very, very careful, because I will actually play this like way to excess and then just like lose track of time. Now, here's something that I've been asked to test when I posted just a couple pictures on Reddit, some like spoilers, like, hey, look what I have. which is a good idea, I guess, because some people will ask me questions before the review goes out, which is awesome. And I told them, yeah, I'll test that. I can't give away anything before the embargo is lifted, but I can certainly test things if you want. So this is an eGPU. This eGPU here uses AMD drivers. It's a 7600M XT, obviously more powerful than an iGPU. I use this all the time with my HX370 device over there. Plugged in over USB-C. Now, the Legion Go 1, you could use eGPUs, but I did find quirks with it where sometimes the drivers would be screwed up. Okay, now you can see here we do have the AMD Connect popping up. So what that means, if I can just switch over here, once it's finished, it might ask me to get out of here. What you'll do once it's finished, I'll just go through while I'm doing this. You'll see here, and you can come in here, click on that, and it'll basically tell you, right, if anything is running on your dedicated graphics or not, right here. And then of course you can eject it. So if you don't want to be using the eGPU anymore, you can click the button to eject it. Right now it's basically saying, nothing's using it, but we can eject it like that and go back to iGPU, or we can just run. Right now we're running on the iGPU. Right now we're running on the DGPU. If you eject it, then it'll go back to the iGPU. So you come in here, right, go like that. Now, in theory, you should be able to set games to run off of that. So we can come in here. The way that I do it, when I want to do, if I have an eGPU hooked up, is I go like this, game mode settings, because now we have an iGPU and a DGPU, both going at the same time. So we can come in here and we can say, I don't know, let's do Cyberpunk. So we'll go like that, and we go to game mode, and it'll say, Windows will decide, is it going to use the iGPU or the DGPU? Theoretically, it should use the DGPU, but sometimes it can be messed up. So what I do here is I tell it, no, I force it to use the dedicated. So we'll go like that. Okay, so now we're running on an eGPU. I'm not running this directly into the screen. I'm running this into my 7600M XT eGPU over USB 4. I mean, it's not a beast eGPU. It's not a 5070 Ti or something like that right there. But you could get a dock and run a more powerful GPU. You could run a 5070 Ti if you get a USB 4 dock that supports it. So we'll just try this 1440p native. So rather than going 1440p with some scaling, so we're at 1440p with balanced scaling, for example. We were at 1080p with scaling. So we're at 1080p with scaling on medium. And then here, we're at 1440p on medium with no scaling. You can see here we're getting more performance on a higher resolution with less scaling. So, obviously it's going to perform quite well. Hogwarts Legacy is just one game. We can kick out here. We'll try another. We'll try Cyberpunk, which is also CPU intensive. So we'll go like that. We'll go 1440p. Try that. And here we'll go 1440p. We can turn it up now. So we'll go 1440p high, maybe with just a little bit of scaling, something like that. So we've gone to a higher setting from medium. Now we're going up to high. We're also going to a higher resolution. So we're increasing the demand on the system significantly more by increasing resolution and increasing the settings as well. Right, and so here you can see now we're getting the same performance, again, same performance that the internal was getting. It's actually it's the exact same FPS, which is interesting. However, the difference is now we're running with higher resolution and more setting. So we went from medium up to high, right? We went from medium up to high, and we went from 1080p to 1440p. Right? You can play with these things. You could go 1440p medium, for example. You're going to run into things like bandwidth limitations and that a little bit over USB 4, but it's still going to increase your performance quite a bit, right? So, if you want to play on 1440p on the handheld, you could do it, but you're going to be using a lot of scaling and you might have some issues. You could hook up something like this, like a relatively streamlined and inexpensive eGPU like that, or you could hook up something. I kind of unplugged that a little bit. Or you could hook up something like this, like a much more powerful eGPU, like with a 5070 Ti or something like that. This dock doesn't support USB 4, but I had one before that had a USB 4, and you could just plug in a 5070 Ti or 5080 or something like that and plug that in. And yeah, you lose some performance off of it, but it's going to easily, obviously, outperform something like this eGPU here. But it is working. The eGPU is working. pretty much as expected without any issues. Okay, so let's talk about the conclusions here. Let's go over it bit by bit. So hand feel. Hand feel is fantastic. It has a really nice hand feel. The best hand feel of any handheld that I've used to date, by far. That's not an exaggeration. That's not an overstatement. It has the best hand feel of any handheld that I've used today. It rivals a Steam Deck. Steam Deck is, awesome. The nice thing about this, though, is you do have that same kind of width as a Steam Deck, so you're not gaining really much width over it, but you do have a lot larger screen. Even the Steam Deck OLED with the increased screen size, 7.3 inches, this is a much bigger screen, 8.8 inches, more height, just a huge screen, honestly. 1080p is great at this size here. It still looks nice and crisp. I don't think we need a higher resolution at such a still relatively small screen compared to like a laptop, but at this screen size here, that 8.8 inches really goes super far. Other things in terms of the ergonomics, I mean, the buttons all feel really nice. The detachable keyboards work, the detachable controllers work really well. I mean, the actual mechanism is good, lots of buttons all over the place. The ergonomics of it feel great. It doesn't feel heavy. If you've used a Steam Deck, it's not like, Steam Deck is a larger, heavier device than say like the ROG Ally 1 or like a 1X Fly or something like that. Like those are smaller handhelds. Steam Deck, my Switch, heck did I put my Switch? The original Switch over here, Switch 2, those are lighter a little bit, but Switch 2 is still fairly large and all that, so it does not feel unwieldy. I posted some like spoiler pictures yesterday or the night before, whatever, on Reddit, just to be like, look what I have. And people were asking a lot of things, and a lot of people were making jokes. They're like, yeah, you'll be like jacked by the end of using it because it's so heavy. But sorry, it's not. It's going to be heavier than a 3DS, but it's not a heavy device. I think even for someone who's not like my size is going to have no problems carrying this around. It's not a pocketable device, but it's certainly portable, and I have no weight issues with it whatsoever. So it is feeling very good in the hands. Now, other things to talk about here real quick. Speakers are the number one improvement on this thing. I mean, there's all kinds of improvements on this device, but the speakers are monumentally better. They were crap in the first one, on the Legion Go 1, and now they are possibly the best of any handheld that I've used. I would have to like get them all out and test them all at the same time. I don't just own all of them. I don't keep everything that I review. I can't afford to do that. But off the top of my head, I would say these are the best speakers on any handheld that I've used. At minimum, they're equivalent with the best, if not the best. So coming from garbage to the best, or equivalent with the best, is massive. So that was my biggest gripe with the Legion Go 1. Speakers were just not good. That's fantastic. I guess also the ergonomics over the Legion Go 1. The Legion Go 1 had you felt like you're holding onto like a toilet paper roll, right? And here, I mean, it's actually ergonomic now. It feels nice in the hands versus just like gripping a toilet paper roll. That was the dumbest thing. So that's a huge improvement. Obviously, the screen is better. The Legion Go 1 had a really good screen. It just wasn't an OLED, and it was 8 inches. Now we've went with a bigger screen, 8.8 inches, which is awesome. Love to see that. That's a huge improvement. Then the OLED is great too. I don't like OLEDs on laptops and desktops that much because they stare at text all day. But on handheld, sure, it's fantastic. I'm gonna love the extra blacks there. That's awesome. You also get really good color space, which is the same as last year. Awesome screen. Really nice. Other things, the internals are really nice. I mean, you can get a dual-sided NVMe this year without fiddling at all. Last year was a 2242. That was a bad decision, I guess. And they've learned as they went. The Legion Go S also has a 2280, and then this one has a 2280, so you can fit a full-size NVMe in there, and you can put in a dual-sided NVMe. I mean, you can get 8 terabytes, which is crazy. Or you can put in a 4 terabyte and you have more options. You don't have to get a single-sided 4 terabyte. You can get a dual-sided 4 terabyte, and there's lots of them. So that's great. And then last but not least, I guess, would be the performance, right? Here's the thing. The Legion Go is still performant. The Legion Go S, especially with the Z1 Extreme, is very performant because it also has 32 gigabytes of RAM. The biggest jump from the Legion Go 1 and ROG Ally 1 and all those type of devices was more RAM. So they went from 16 gigabytes up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is huge because it's sharing that with your video memory. So you can then have more system memory to run games and crap. You can have more video memory allocated to your GPU. So that's why the Z1 Extreme Legion Go S with 16 gigabytes outperformed the original Legion Go 1 because it has more memory, and it can sometimes be considerable. The 780M is still a great iGPU, even in 2025, But a lot of the, the older ones were kind of limited by the memory. So if you're looking at this device and you're like, should I get this? Should I buy a Legion Go 1? Or should I buy a Legion Go S? Don't buy a Legion Go 1 anymore, unless it's dirt cheap. Sure, whatever, like $200, buy it, whatever. But Legion Go S is still very good. It's still a very good device because you get that Z1 Extreme, for example, especially the Steam Edition. It's a really good handheld, but you get more RAM, 32 gigabytes of RAM. So that's a big jump just from the memory. This one here also has 32 gigabytes of memory. It runs very fast. So just that alone is good. Now we can talk about the CPU. The CPU is more powerful in here. It's not staggeringly more powerful, but it's more powerful. If you're going to be using this as a desktop, it's more powerful. That's great. Not the end of the world. Doesn't matter. In gaming, it makes no difference. Both of them were very capable. But the GPU is more performant. I daily drive an 890M, and I've been doing so for months here. And it is more performant than a 780M. Plain as day. People may say, is it more performant? Is it not as performant? Maybe it's not worth it. It's not staggering in terms of like, you're not going from a 780M and going, now all of a sudden I get double the FPS, right? So the first step was, you got yourself a 780M with 16 gigabytes. It was good for the time, like several years ago, but it doesn't really work as well anymore. Then you added more RAM, like the ROG Ally X added 24 gigabytes. The Legion Go S 32 gigabytes, and that was a huge jump from the Legion Go 1 up to getting that extra RAM. Made a big difference. Now we're getting, outside of all the other tweaks to the system, we're getting also a more powerful APU with the 890M graphics. And yes, it is more capable. Depends on the game. Sometimes it's 5 to 10%. More, what I'm seeing is 15, sometimes even 20%. It is noticeable, right? When I go back to a 780M handheld, a lot of times in modern 2025 games, I'm like, all right, I'm shooting for, let's say, in a game, let's just pick a game, for example, whatever game, I'm at low and I'm getting 40 to 45 FPS. On this one here, I'm not going on low, I'm going on medium, right? So I'm going from low to medium settings and getting around the same FPS. I might gain an extra few FPS, but also I'm able to up the settings. On the original Legion Go 1, in most modern games, you're throwing that thing down to absolute low. I mean, also because of the memory, but you're throwing it to absolute low. And, a lot of the games, you're going to get 30, no problem. You're shooting for like 40, maybe 45 on the lowest settings. It's good. It's a good, enjoyable experience. On this one here, it's like, well, I can go with low and go up to 60 FPS, which is great. Or I can start to tweak those settings, turn those settings up a little bit, get some stuff up to medium. So I can tell you that these Z1 Extremes here, depending on which APU setting you put for power, you can get pretty good battery life. On absolute max, you're probably getting like an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's fine, I guess. You can turn that thing down a little bit there, go with like a medium type setting, like 20 watts, and then you make it 2.5 hours, maybe 3, and you can go down 15 depending on an easy game. So if you're playing a light game, very, very light, easy to run game, you're going to be able to easily get, 5 hours, maybe even 6 hours. That sounds crazy, but it's very doable. Throw that thing down to like 7 or 8 watts and just game for hours and hours and hours and hours on a flight, right? That kind of thing. But if you want to play some, Hogwarts or something like that, you're going to throw it on to like 25 watts. Maybe you can get 2 to 3 hours. So a reasonably short flight, something like that. No problem. You'll be able to get that. If you're playing a game like Cyberpunk where you're hitting the CPU and the GPU at the same time, it is much harder to run. You're going to be looking probably at like a 30 watt scenario, in which case, you might get like a couple hours out of it. So still decent, but you're gaming off of that. The nice thing is it does just use a little USB-C charger, so you just plug it in wherever you go and get more battery life. So that's that. Should you buy the handheld here? This is the tough one, right? So if you have a Legion Go 1, original Legion Go 1, what's the upgrade to this? It is a lot, actually. It's a very big improvement. So not only are you getting, a more powerful APU, it just is, whatever you say, it is more powerful APU. You're getting more RAM. That also helps a ton. So you are going to get massive performance boost over the ROG Ally 1, Legion Go 1, and over a Steam Deck. It's massively more performant than a Steam Deck. It's not even comparable. Hugely more performant than a Steam Deck. So yes, if you're coming from a Steam Deck, ROG Ally 1, Legion Go 1, to upgrade to this is a huge performance boost. Huge performance boost. So that alone is massive. Then you're also getting all the niceties. These devices have become more refined over time, right? The first generation stuff, Steam Deck is still great, but it was like just a little handheld thing. No bells and whistles. The Legion Go 1 had some real cool stuff to it, but it wasn't executed perfectly. The ROG Ally was actually kind of poorly executed. It was performant, but it was kind of garbage in terms of a lot of the quality control and that kind of stuff. I wasn't a fan of it. So coming from those, yeah, they're like, it's a no-brainer, right? Like you're going with much more performance and way more bells and whistles. Yes, it's more expensive. And if you still use those handhelds and you don't need the extra performance, sure, just keep them. Maybe wait another few years. But if you're starting to be like, I can't play these games anymore, or like the device is just not doing it for me, yes, it's a good upgrade, very good upgrade. Then if you're looking at, kind of the mid-gen refresh, so the Ally X, it is a much more premium device than the original Ally. It performs better because it's 24 gigabytes of RAM instead of 16, which it does matter. It actually does matter. And I just find it better. It's more premium, but it's also really expensive. It's more affordable than something like this brand new Halo, but the Ally X was always very expensive. So if you already have one, I mean, yeah, you could upgrade to this. It's a way better screen. 7 inches is not enough for Windows. I'm sorry. There's a new Asus Ally X coming out, the Xbox version. I've already bought it or pre-ordered it, and I'm not hopeful about that screen size. Might be the best device in the world, but the screen size is already very disappointing. So going from 7 inches up to 8.5, 8.8 inches is huge to make a big difference. So that could be worth it. It's your call. If you have a Legion Go S, especially like, the Steam Edition or the Z1 Extreme, should you upgrade to this? That's a tough sell for me. This is more premium. It has way more bells and whistles, detachable controllers. It does have a better screen than the Legion Go S. It's just a generally better device, and it does perform better because it does have the Z2 Extreme, etc., which does perform better. But it's not going to be like revolutionarily more performant and more like nice than a Legion Go S. So if you have Legion Go S, you might want to hang on to it. I mean, unless it's like the Legion Go S with the Z1 non-extreme or whatever it was, like that like weaker one, sure, that's going to be a huge upgrade. But if you have the Z1 Extreme Legion Go S, you want to upgrade to this, sure, if you really want the bells and whistles, a little bit more performance, but definitely more bells and whistles, it could be worth it. Then if you're looking at, but the original generation stuff, Steam Deck, ROG Ally 1, Legion Go 1, it is actually a huge upgrade to come to something like this. It's a huge upgrade to come to something like this. Now, the other consideration is the ROG Ally X Xbox Edition. I have pre-ordered it. I will give it a full review. I don't know how it is yet because I don't have it yet. But if you're deciding between that and this, right, the Legion Go 2 and the ROG Ally X, I mean, you could buy both of them, pre-order them, and just pick the one you want, return the one you don't want. But I am going to be clear here. I do not have a lot of faith in the ROG Ally X handheld. Why is that? Because of the 7-inch screen. It's a physically large handheld. It's going to be similar in hand wheeled to something like this. Maybe slightly smaller, but it's still physically like larger. But it has those handle things coming down. So they've actually made the device larger, but they've kept the same screen size. And I'm sorry, but in Windows, 7-inch doesn't cut it unless it's a portable. Like you can get like a 1X Fly, like the little guy, and that's a tiny little device. Like it's a tiny little thing. There's other companies, OEMs and that, who have 7-inch handhelds, even 6-inch handhelds, but they're smaller. The physical handheld is much smaller. So it's like, okay, the ratio of screen to body is like, okay, I don't like them because it is still very small for Windows, but if you do a lot of emulation, certain types of games, you'd be like, whatever, it's tiny, pop it in my bag, it's small. But once you start to get into like a full-wheeled handheld, I'm sorry, 7 inches is not going to cut it for me. If you go back, I don't remember where I was critical. I was like, I'm not too sure about these new handhelds coming out. Like, what is Lenovo actually going to do to sell me, right, on the Legion Go 1? Like, yeah, you can put 16 gigabytes RAM up to 32. That's good. It's more performance. I'm going to love that. You can give me the more powerful APU. I'm going to love that. It's going to be great. But is it going to be enough for me to go from a Legion Go 1 to a Legion Go 2? Paying all this extra money for more performance, for sure. It can be a lot of extra performance, especially with that RAM. But I could also just get a Legion Go S. Is it enough to sell me on that? Hard to say. But then it got it, and it's very premium. Everything is so premium, so goddamn premium on this handheld that, yes, I think it's a good buy if you can afford it, and it's in your budget, and you want a super premium handheld with a actually freaking gorgeous screen. This is the one for now, right now. It's awesome. Unfortunately, I don't own this, so I can't keep it, but there's a very high chance that I will end this video, do more testing, and then place a pre-order for it. I have a lot of handhelds, so I might wait for a sale or something. That's just the way that I roll. But this thing is really nice.